My friend Aaron Linsdau is an Antarctic explorer, and he has taught me a lot about how developing a positive outlook strengthens your resiliency. He did this in the most unforgiving climate on the planet. This is going to blow your mind. For several years now, I mention this man in my keynotes and presentations, and Aaron, I have a confession to make. I usually declare from the front of the room that you are crazy.
I'll take that personally from a psychologist.
Well, and I'm sure that you appreciate when a clinical psychologist declares that from the front of the room, but here's what this guy did. This is Aaron Linsdau. If you're not sure who he is, you're going to know after this video. He trekked solo from the Hercules Inlet on the coast of Antarctica to the South Pole. Distance of over 700 miles. I think it took you 3 months.
Yeah.
That was the longest day of your life, I'm sure, because the sun never went down during that time. Folks, this is a feat that very few people on the planet can claim. That's why I said that you're crazy.
Yes, absolutely. And I embrace that.
You're going to embrace that a little bit, aren't you?
Yeah.
You learned some things from that experience. And by the way, folks, Aaron and I are doing another episode. You can look for it. It's How to Survive in Antarctica, where you're going to share some of the crazy things that came up for you. Yes. And we'll have a lot of fun in that episode. The thing that struck me, Aaron, as you shared this experience with me, is the importance of a positive attitude in developing resiliency and even right down to survival. What have you learned about that?
The number one thing about being positive and these experiences where you're in extreme conditions and the circumstances are completely out of your control is to actually choose to have a positive mindset, because you can actually develop physiological problems where you start spiraling down and you think, oh man, this is terrible, this is tough. And after a long, long time, you actually get to the condition where as you're skiing along and you're dragging these 300 plus pounds of food, fuel, and supplies, your hair will actually hurt. Now, of course, your hair can't hurt because we all go to the barber, clip, clip, clip. There's no bloody screaming. And yet that will actually happen to you. Because as you go along and you start thinking and worrying and, oh, this is tough and my body hurts, your fingernails will hurt, your hair will hurt. And that's why I want to ask you, Dr. Paul, is that this whole psychology of as you become more and more negative, you can create physical problems in your body. I mean, I'm not a doctor and I would say it causes cancer, but there is that possibility where negativity just totally will destroy you.
It has, as you pointed out, a physiological effect. Not to even mention all of the psychological barriers that it creates. Let's just go there first, because every thought that you have has a chemical component. Just connect with that for a minute. This is the way nerves talk to each other. A neuron talks to the other neuron through a synapse, and in that synapse are chemicals, and there's a transfer from one end of the nerve to the other. It's a chemical electrical process that happens. So, understanding that, the more we focus on negative thoughts, or the more we get into these hopeless ideations, we're actually changing the chemistry of our neurophysiology. And that has an impact. Like you were saying, it makes you more vulnerable now to all kinds of things. Discouragement, of course, but also injury. So really we're enacting a different part of our brain to engage. And without getting into all the details about that, yes, Aaron, you're absolutely right. It has a physiological effect. The psychological aspect is huge as well. In fact, I think before, Aaron, you shared with me that water is number 4 on the survival list. Do you remember sharing that with me?
At least. I mean, people always think, oh, you need food, you need water, you need shelter. And really, no, the number one thing that you need to survive, and we'll talk about this in another survival video, is the attitude and the belief that you can make it through this challenge. That is the number one thing. Because let's say the horrific instance of there's this movie out now, I think it's called Alpha, about the first dog. And the boy gets trapped under this ice. And he's floating along in the river or the lake or whatever is happening. And if he had that moment of, you know what, I'm not going to make it, and he breathed in, over.
He's done.
Instant.
He's
Yeah.
right, actually.
Yeah, but if you have this belief, well, I got 4 minutes, I can still fight for 4 minutes. That's a long 4 minutes that you might make it out.
So it's number one because nothing else is relevant if you abandon that one.
Yeah, if you abandon the will to survive,
Food, water, shelter,
you'll never even make it that long.
completely irrelevant
No,
at this
definitely
point.
not. Yeah.
I gotta ask you, what's 2 and 3? It drive me nuts.
I have a book coming out about that. Yes, an
Well-
expedition book.
And I'm sure in a polar environment, it has something to do with shelter or heat or.
Oh yeah, I mean it goes by the list of things that will kill you.
Oh yeah, that makes
And
sense.
so how long will it take for XYZ to kill you? And food, that's like 3+ weeks. I mean, you go on a diet of starvation. Oh my gosh. But that also happens with, as negativity builds up, it also builds up this distraction in your mind. And that's actually what causes a potential for injury, because I'm sure you've had this experience where you have this silly argument that you've had with your kid, your spouse, your whoever significant other.
Yeah.
And you're stewing on that, and all of a sudden, I totally did not see that red light there because I was off in La La Land.
Right.
And the same thing happens in extreme environments like in polar areas and Arctic and Antarctic and high mountains. Man, when your mind is wandering around and it's for some reason in tough conditions, it always gets wrapped into negativity just because your body's working out, your subconscious is really trying to give you an excuse to stop. And that's why
Right.
things start hurting. And that's why I want to ask you, Dr. Paul, how does that subconscious actually make things hurt that shouldn't even hurt? And yet the moment you stop,
Yeah.
I feel fine.
Aaron, pain is a psychological experience. We tie it to our physical body and we say we feel pain in this area or in that joint or in that extremity or whatever. The pain is actually experienced here. And we know that because if we put your head to sleep, you don't feel any pain.
Oh,
That's what anesthesia is all about, folks.
of course.
Right?
Yeah.
We just put your mind to sleep and then you don't seem to feel the pain as we surgically open up your knee.
Right.
Right? So pain is psychological. And it makes sense that if we're focused on this negativity, we're going to experience more things like pain or fatigue or exhaustion, resiliency. Tell me what your experience has been with resiliency. What does that mean to you, and what does positive attitude have to do with that?
Oh, sure. So resiliency is your ability to spring back from whatever condition or circumstances happen to you. And that's really your capability of, okay, it's all gone wrong. In my instance, I coughed up blood. The skis on my sled broke. The worst conditions in a decade. I mean, let me go down this long litany of
All the reasons, yeah.
Yeah, well, this happened to me. And people always say, well, how come this happened to me? And that's why I talk in my speech, why not you?
Love it.
Yeah, let me give somebody some phone numbers and email addresses, and we'll send them some of these problems. No, of course not.
Yeah.
Stuff is gonna happen to you. But if you know that that's gonna happen, and you accept, well, you don't go drive into a car wreck, you don't starve yourself to death. But okay, things broke. My kid got a bad grade in school. My car broke down. It's gonna happen. If you just look at it objectively and say, all right, it's happened. What can I do about it to improve the circumstance? That is resiliency. Of you can choose the negative aspect and bemoan it and cry and make everybody miserable and just get to the point where you can't even get out of bed.
Yeah.
Or, well, it's broken. How do I fix it? You just simply make the leap over that river, if you will, and go to the solution. Because so often, so many challenges in life, I mean, you get into law and like, hey, I want to go land on the moon. It's complex, but really, you go through this process, and the quicker you can get to that solution phase, the better off you are. But that's not saying to deny your emotions, though. And this is key. Because if you say, oh, I need to be a robot, I need to be military, No. Emotions happen to us. And that's why I want to ask you, Dr. Paul, is,
Yeah.
you have this emotional state, but to bring yourself up out of it, what's the best process for people to do that?
I love that you mentioned that it's not about not having a particular emotion, because as human beings, we're programmed to have a wide variety, a range of emotions, and you're never wrong about how you feel. It really is painful. It really is disturbing. It really is something that you're sad about. But as you're talking about resiliency, Aaron, it's about, okay, well, how do you spring back as quickly as possible to that position of, okay, now what? And get into that problem-solving mode.
Right.
I think one of the keys here, psychologically, is to allow yourself to feel whatever you're feeling. Allow yourself to feel. This might sound a little counterintuitive, because we're all here about, well, let's get positive and increase our resiliency and our chances of survival. Yes. And one of the ways to do that is to give yourself permission to feel your feelings. Feelings change. In fact, I've got a colleague who made his whole career off of those two words.
Things change.
Feelings change. And notice that this is true in your own experience. It's not going to hang out forever. Just feel it, okay? How are you supposed to feel when your ski breaks out in the middle of Antarctica? And so you let yourself feel that.
Right.
When you let yourself feel it, it's interesting because giving yourself that permission actually shortens the duration of that feeling so that you can move through it and past it more quickly. And then you get back on purpose. You know what, Aaron? Until we see it as a choice, it's not.
Yeah.
And so our programming just kind of default kicks in with, oh, now I can't do what I was going to do, or something negative, you know, if that's our programming. Pause for a moment. Let yourself to feel whatever you're going to feel, and then notice that you're taking a position about it, and you have some choice about what position you're going to take. So the resiliency kicks in when you say, you know what, I've been hit. But think about a rigid stick that's sticking in the ground, and something hits it and just breaks it off.
Right.
As opposed to a green, tender sapling. Something hits it and it bends over, and then it springs back.
Master
Right.
Dr. Paul here.
This is what, well, the image
like
comes
this,
to mind
yeah.
about
It
resiliency,
is.
right? You're gonna bend and shift to the things that hit you, and then spring back into purposeful action.
Yeah.
I don't know if I even answered your question.
No,
Aaron.
that is. I mean, I had conditions when I was skiing along Antarctica as the wind would build up through the day. It was so severe that I couldn't even face into it. I had to turn away, and I'm on my skis, and I'm kind of huddled up there for a moment. And the wind was so strong that it would actually push me on my skis, and I would start scooting backwards. So imagine, I mean, that's like 50, 60 plus mile an hour winds to take you and not just shove you around, but on your skis you begin scooting back, and you start thinking like, I do not want to move backwards. This is totally wrong. And you begin spiraling out of control in these conditions. And I would get to the end of the day and I would be so tired. I would literally ski along and I would fall over and on my face in the ice. I'm like, oh my gosh. But as I got my tent set up, I would unzip that door and unzip the fly. I would dive in there and get my feet off the freezing ice, and I would zip it up, and all of a sudden my emotions just, I mean, like one of those Star Wars sounds where you get the power down. Yes.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Yeah. And all of a sudden I feel like, it's not so bad.
I'm okay.
Yeah, I mean, just a couple millimeters of nylon from being in a horrible place to, this isn't so bad. So I guess
Wow.
people joke, hey, let's go to my happy place. But it really did make a difference of, okay, come to wherever you've got the safe place to just evaluate the condition. Because when you're at work and you're tough conditions, your boss is mad at you, your spouse and kids or whoever's mad about you, if you could just take a moment instead of boiling up and doing something not smart, to throttle it back and say, hey, let's let this calm down. Let me be a little bit more objective. Let my feelings pass. Yeah, just for me, I mean, there was no other place to hide than in the tent. So as soon as I got in there, and, it's not so bad. Maybe I won't quit today.
Wow. You know what? I have to acknowledge, I've got your book here, Aaron. Antarctic Tears by Aaron Linsdau. If you're going to read this, have a blanket handy. This was like 3 months of daily exposure to the most extreme climate on the planet. And it's kind of a hard read that way.
Yeah.
But you give a nice background to what it is that you're sharing with us right now. And I think that adds such validity, because what conditions are we facing? And it's really easy in the perspective of, oh, my job's hard, right? Or my spouse is nagging me about whatever. And you've got 30 mile an hour, 30 below winds beating down on you.
On a good day.
In Antarctica. And that was during the good weather. It's all relative, right? And this is something that adds to our perspective. It could always be worse. And as you slip inside of that tent, you know, some people on the planet might think, I'm in a little nylon tent in the middle of nowhere. I'm going to die. And you climb in there and you're like, oh,
It's home.
home. This
Yes.
is nice, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's all about perspective. Notice that. I just want you to notice it. Aaron, you've helped me to notice that, because your experience is so extreme compared to anything that I've ever done.
Yeah.
It helps me to have a better perspective of, oh, you know what? I can handle this. That positive attitude creates a resiliency that allows you to snap back up into place and get on purpose again.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, people hire me to speak at their corporate events or their organizations. And I've had quite a few clients say, you know, we looked at you, we looked at your picture, we read what you did, and we just couldn't believe it. We actually had to bring you here to see. I mean, 'cause I did
Is
engineering.
this guy for real?
Yeah, I mean, because people expect, oh, Polar Explorer,
Yeah.
6'4", 230 pound. Like, look, I'm just a regular average guy, maybe even a little
You're
bit
not an
thin.
average guy. Aaron, you started as an engineer, for Pete's sake.
Well, there's a whole other
That's
problem
another
there.
story.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. But the ability, and people say, how did you get through these things? And it's not in the brawn. It's in here
Yeah.
and in here.
Yes.
That is really what takes you, man. The couple other explorers that I met, one young woman, she was in her mid-20s at the time, 5'4", just this little petite thing from Iceland. She was out there skiing by herself to the South Pole alone. First person ever from Iceland to do that. And
Wow.
you look at her like, she did what? Nobody believes her at all, ever. And it's like, no, because she actually told me her plan was to think, how am I going to emotionally respond to X, Y, and Z? How am I going to bounce back to build my resiliency when my ski breaks, when the weather's bad, when she got sick, she got food poisoning down there. It was,
Wow.
yeah. And so how am I going to spring back from that? Am I going to let that completely shut me down? Or am I going to say, all right, I know what has happened. That's fine. What can I do to avoid the circumstance? But also to just let it go. Because once it's happened, it's happened. You take the piece of paper, you crease it. That piece of paper will never be uncreased again. Now what are you going to do? And you can decide, hey, the paper is now creased. Let it go.
It's a pretty darn good question.
Yeah.
Now what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Instead of, like we normally in psychology, we will turn that into a statement disguised as a question. Now what am I going to do? See how that's a statement?
I like that.
Yeah, turn
That's
it back
good.
into a question. Now, what am I going to do? That's resiliency. I'm always amazed and fascinated when I hear this man's story. It's powerful and it can be applied to almost anything. Thank you for watching. Make sure you've subscribed if you're new here.